Performance of the 2024 financial year and first quarter of 2025. I'm Claudette Sindaza Jonga, and on sign language we have Chola Kauma. Just now we cross over to the Committee on Planning and Budgeting Committee.
Vice President DMMU, sir, you are welcome and good morning. Thank you. You are appearing before the Planning and Budgeting Committee, where we are looking at the budget performance review for the first quarter for 2025 in relation to how it, in the same period of 2024 we did perform, and we're happy that as a unit you have found time to appear before this committee this morning. So what we'll do is, before we start, let's do introductions. You introduce your team, and I'll allow the honorable members of this committee to follow. Then we'll start. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. My name is Norman Chipakupaku, and I'm the National Coordinator. Chair, I brought a team, and this team includes directors, assistant directors, accountants, and other senior staff in the unit. I think I'll start from the right and then follow on, and then the rest of the team will introduce themselves. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Victor Piri. I'm the Chief Accountant.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Amos Mumba. I'm Director Humanitarian Operations at DMMU.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Likezo Msobani, Acting Assistant Director, DRIM. Thank you very much.
DRIM.
Disaster Risk Management.
Thank you. Yeah, that's complete.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Dominic Kangongo. I'm the Chief Planner. Thank you.
Morning, Chair. My name is Adines Chiriwoi Mrwanda, Senior Procurement Officer.
Good morning, the Chairperson, sir. Morning, honorable members. I'm Paul Samboko, Assistant Director in charge of Logistics and Warehousing.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, honorable members. My name is Makoich Suta, Assistant Director, Emergency and Relief.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Mumbazulu. I'm the Acting Senior Monitoring and Evaluation Officer.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Pumulo Kalumiana. I'm Senior Internal.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Shaba Benjamin. I'm an Assistant Accountant at Immigration at DMMU. Remembering where you
the previous
I last was.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just go ahead, please.
Thank you. So for Maureen now and Mr. Paul Samboko, if they need to put their names on the register. Honorable members, introductions. Let's start with my far right, honorable member.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. I'm Jeff Mureba, MP for Kaflafta constituency. The most prestigious constituency, the land that flows with milk and honey. I'm happy to have Mr. Piri. My late wife was from the Piri family, so Ndimo Alamu. You are welcome.
Good morning, PS and your team. I'm Frank Simushi, Member of Parliament for Skongo constituency.
Good morning, PS and your team. My name is Konwa Simunji, Member of Parliament for Narikwanda constituency, Western Province.
Good morning, PS and your team. My name is David Mavumba, MP for Mwanza constituency in Wapra Province.
Thank you. Honorable Amtike.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, PS. Engineer Oliver Amutike, Member of Parliament for the good people of Mongo Central, the home of the Pomboka ceremony in Barosland. So I'm joining you from Vienna this morning. I couldn't be there physical. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And my name is Fred Jatila, a Member of Parliament for Momba constituency in Monze, also the chairperson for this committee. The other members we have are our supporting staff from the Office of the Clerk. Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia gives you witness the immunity when you are appearing before a committee of parliament such as this one, meaning that whilst we are together, whatever you say and that which you say cannot be used against you in any court of law. So take advantage of that provision. However, the same provision works against you in an event that you are to deliberately mislead the committee, which I doubt will be the case. And also just to indicate that we are live, both on Parliament Radio and TV. So our people out there will give us this mandate following the proceedings. Then we have your submission, which is about 6 pages. It's very brief, and I hope will not keep you long. In that case, then we are asking if we can give you, say, 25 minutes, if you need all of it, so that we take us through your submission, and I will allow members to ask questions, and that is if at all they have any questions after that, then we'll be done. So you can start, sir.
Thank you so much, Chair, and honorable members of this committee. Following your letter PBO 3/1/5 dated the 22nd of April 2025 regarding budget performance review of the 2024 financial year and first quarter of 2025, Chair and members, I wish to comment as follows on behalf of DMMU, which is a unit under the Vice President's office. Chair, the first question was the proportion of the 2025 budget that was released in aggregate expenditure against the budget allocation in the first quarter, and how this compares with the first quarter budget of 2024. Chair, in the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the financial year 2025, a provision of 323,129,994 kwacha was made to cater for the personal emoluments and recurrent departmental charges, which is RDCs, of the unit against the amounts totaling 194 million was funded in the first quarter, which is Q1, thereby giving funding release against annual budgets of 60%. The aggregate expenditure, Chair, in the first quarter of 2025 was 104.8 million, 186.87 ngwe, thereby giving expenditure against a budget allocation of 32%. And the details of this, Chair, are in our table number 1, which we have provided. Chair, compared to the 2024, the estimates of revenue and expenditure had a budget provision of 125.7 million, which was to cater for personal emoluments and recurrent department charges, which is RDCs of the unit, against which amounts the totaling of 33.9 million was funded in the first quarter, which is Q1 of 2024, thereby giving a funding release against annual budget to allocation of 27%. The aggregate expenditure, Chair, in the first quarter of 2024 was 32.6 million, thereby giving expenditure against budget allocation of 26%. This is again provided in our table number 2 with the full details of how this was done in the departments stated disaster risk management, disaster humanitarian operations management, and the management services, support services. Chair, the details are very, very clear. When it comes to the table 1, the budget allocation for disaster risk management, which is DRM, the allocation was 32.2 million. What was actually released was 1.9 million, and the expenditure was 1.1, and there was a variance there, a huge variance, Chair, of 30 million. And only in terms of disaster humanitarian operations, the budget allocation was 277 million. What was released was 187.8. The actual expenditure was 100.5 million, and there was a variance of 177.2 million. On management and support services, budget allocation was 14 million, and what was released was 4. The expenditure was 3 million, and the variance, chair and committee members, was 10.9 million. The totals, as we said, 323 million.1, releases 194, and the budget percentage was 60.06%, and the expenditure was 104.8 million, and expenditure against budget was 32.43%, a variance of 218.3 million. When it comes to table number 2, Chair, that is the budget performance first quarter of 2024. And risk, DRIM, which is disaster risk management, the budget allocation was 41.1 million. What was released is 22 million, and the expenditure was 21.5 million, a variance of 26 million. On the disaster and humanitarian operations, Chair, 55.1 was the budget allocation, and 7.8 million was what was released, and the expenditure was 7.7, and there was a variance of 47.4 million. On the management and support services, Chair, 22.4 was budget allocation, with releases was 4.1 million, and the expenditure was 3.4 million, bringing a variance of 19 million. And the total expenditure allocation to the budget allocation was 125.7 million. What was released was 33.9 million, and that is a release against that was 26.98%, and the expenditure, Chair, was 32.6 million, and expenditure in terms of allocation was 25.9, and the variance of 99 million, Chair. We also have the budget allocation versus releases, Chair, and the figures are very, very clear that in terms of the disaster risk management, the figures are 32.2. These are the graphs which were provided, and on management was 1.9, and disaster human operations, the actual figures 277. These are the graphic figures, Chair. The above, the graphs above, Chair, indicates that the largest amount released was towards the disaster and humanitarian operations. And I think the reasons are very, very clear from what we saw last year. This is so because funds allocated to the Africa Risk Capacity Drought Insurance payout are sitting under this department. This is the money which is given to us because we paid our premiums with what we call the African Risk Capacity for Drought Insurance payout. That's why the figures are so high for on DHOM, which is Disaster and Human Operations Management, Chair. If we look at the budget allocation versus releases in quarter Q1, which was 2024, the figures are Disaster risk management, again, the figures are very, very clear there, 48.1, and on the disaster and humanitarian, 55.6, and management, 22.4. These are very, very clear. The notes, according to our notes, the graph above shows that the disaster and humanitarian operations received more funding, Chair, in Q1 of 2024. This is again attributed to 20 million received from the Treasury as part of the drought response effort to facilitate payments to project implementing partners. These are people who move the drought, the donations, the food which we distribute throughout the provinces, involved in the distribution of this relief food throughout the country. So we allocated that money which we got from the Treasury to make sure that the food was distributed accordingly. Chair, on budget allocation versus expenditure in Q1 of 2025, again the figures are very clear there. Management and the support services, the budget allocation 14 million, the expenditure so far 3 million. On the disaster humanitarian operations management, the budget allocation 277.8 million, and the expenditure so far 100.5 million. On the disaster risk management, 31 million is budget allocation, 1.1 so far expenditure. Chair, you might not notice that the increase in the expenditure under disaster and humanitarian operations is attributed to increased expenditure on social cash transfer, resulting from the Africa Risk Drought Insurance. This money comes to DMMU, goes to the Ministry of Community Development for us to pay the social cash resulting from the Africa risk capacity. And then if you look at the Chair and members, the budget allocation versus expenditure again on Q1 or 2024, these are the figures here. Management and support services, again 22.4 versus 3.4 million. Disaster humanitarian operations, Chair, you notice that is again 55.1 million and versus 7.7 million. The increase in the expenditure under disk risk management is attributed again, Chair, to expenditure on the distribution of relief food by the unit using these project implementing partners, mainly churches, NGOs, distributing different foods, relief foods and mainly relief foods to different provinces. Number two, Chair, you asked us to actually raise the underlying factors for any observed variances in the budget performance. The first note, Chair, is that members should note that the disaster and humanitarian operations management has observed a variance of 177.2 million compared to 47 million in the first quarter of 2024. The variance of 177.2 million, Chair, is attributed to funds from ARC, as I've said, the Africa Risk Capacity, which were factored into the 2025 budget for disbursement to households that were affected by the drought in the 2023-2024 farming season. Chair, for the information of the members, this exercise is still ongoing, and I think we're still paying out the last 15 districts which we are paying out. The increase in releases, Chair, and expenditure in the first quarter of 2025 can also be attributed to the release of 20 million, as I said, in the first quarter as part of the drought response effort for it to cater for payments to our project implementing partners. As I said, we engage different NGOs, churches in the distribution of maize throughout the country. And we have all these partners who have been given these tasks. Chair, if we look at the budget analysis for 2025, if you allow me to do that, the figures are very, very clear, Chair, that the disaster risk management budgetary allocation is 31.2 million. What has been released so far is 1.9 million. The expenditure is 1.1. The expected output based on the released funds by the end of quarter one of 2025, the rapid assessments will be conducted, which were conducted.
Sir, on which page are you on? That
I'm on page 6, Chair. Page 6. Probably I'm too fast.
No. I think we have missed your.
Okay.
That is not part of the submission.
Oh, they don't have. Okay.
Don't
Sorry,
have
Chair. You don't have the. I just wanted to make sure that we. Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry for misleading the committee, Chair.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. Chair, these are the analyses which we don't have, but I just wanted to raise the challenges, Chair. First, in the implementation of the budget in the first quarter of 2025. The first quarter, the unit, Chair, is experiencing challenges in the implementation of programs and activities in the first quarter of 2025 compared to 2024 due to insufficient funding. That is, I think, the main issue. But we are still talking to the Treasury every day so that they can hear what our requests are. Though the unit received substantial funds during the quarter under review, Chair, the bulk of it was ring-fenced for humanitarian response for households that were affected by drought under the Africa risk capacity. This money, we can't use it for anything else, Chair. We have to make sure that it's paid to the people who are entitled to that money after the drought we had. The funds for RDCs were insufficient, thereby affecting response to flash floods in Lusaka. We did everything we could, but the funds were not enough. The contamination of the Kafue River by the mining company in Kitwe and the current red locust invasion in Western Province, Southern Province, and we're also getting reports of some parts of Central Province. Inadequate funding for district offices, Chair, to be able to conduct disaster risk reduction and activities also affected. Chair and the committee, you are aware that we've employed district disaster management officers in most of the districts. We're still employing. But these officers, their work has been affected because of lack of insufficient funding. The same with lack of transport for district disaster management officers to be able to respond to disasters in very hard to reach places. Since I was appointed Chair, I've been to some of these places. Well, by the locusts, I was in Western Province and I've seen what is happening. There are issues in the Northern Province, there are issues in almost all the province, especially areas, Central Province, Rwano Valley, and Gwembe area and other places, which really need us to have very active, well-equipped disaster management officers. Chair, I just wanted to inform this committee that we've, in the last 1 month, we've tried to work with all our DCs to make sure that we work with them to strengthen our district officials and make sure that the satellite committees work, because we can only tackle such operations if the satellites are effective, if the district officers are effective, if the district disaster committees are effective. Chair, on the projected physical risks in the remaining quarter of 2025, I think, Chair, we all know that inflation will affect the prices, which may erode the purchasing power of government revenue and increase the cost of goods and services, which may affect the budget of the unit in the remaining quarters. Because of inflation, the prices might be going up, and that those prices will affect our budget. Chair, also it's very, very clear that the global economic slowdown, which is unexpected, global events, structural changes, especially with the geopolitical situations, the climate change can also affect the implementation of the budget. We don't know what's ahead of us. Hence, the unit will be affected through reduced funding by the Treasury, because they'll be attending to other issues as well, and reduced funding coming especially from the donors. We are also looking at natural disasters, Chair. events such as fire, which we are trying to prepare for, the floods, some provinces like Northwestern Province, Zambezi West, Chavuma, the water is still coming, and other epidemics like cholera, which are still occurring in some cases. We had few cases in Kabwe, and accidents which are unplanned. Just a few days ago we had some accidents in Serenje. Yesterday another accident in the north. We have to really plan for these natural disasters which we have no control over. Our recommendations here as a unit and as a team on the best way forward. We are asking provinces and district offices to be considered for purchase of office equipment. The district disaster management officers who are just recruited, no equipment, motorbikes needed, equipment, telephones and computers needed, so that they can respond quickly. Chair, I just wanted to give you an example of the locus. Because our officers are not mobile, they can't monitor what is happening. So the locus in Western Province took some time for us to get the reports, because the officers are not mobile. If they are mobile, then they can report quickly, and then we can act quickly, because the idea is to act as quickly as possible. We also need to beef up the transport for these officers and provinces, Chair, so that our officers are alert and they work with their DCs, their provincial chairpersons, the provincial committees as well. Some districts are in very hard to reach areas, Chair, and would require pre-positioning of both food and non-food items to be done prior to the onset of the rain season. Hence there is need, Chair and members, of constructing warehouses in districts, in provinces and districts. Some districts after November can't be reached. We will need probably to have food in those districts. Some districts in the north, you will need to have boats in order to reach our people. And all this requires funds, Chair. We are also working to explore partnerships with the local transport services, NGOs, and including the UN agencies to improve mobility of disaster response teams, ensuring timely access. And Chair, we are not only working with NGOs, we also want to work very closely with the defense forces. I think my former ministry, to be able to be proactive and act. And these are the things which we are recommending, Chair, that we explore as we tackle 2025. Chair, I submit on behalf of the team from DMMU. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chipakupaku, for the presentation. Honorable members, do we have any questions? Honorable Murebwa, Honorable Simushi, then Honorable Mabumba, in that order. Honorable Murebwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. As usual, Mr. Chipakupaku, the presentation was fantastic. I, however, would like to ask you a question or two. I know you've brought in the issue of DCs and so on. Do we have any mechanism that would help us ensure that what the DCs are doing is to the point? I'm saying this because when we look at the drought that we had last season, food was released by the government and we heard about this. But do we have any mechanism that would help us ensure that the DCs are not helping those that might be friends and relatives? And is there any reason why the members of parliament who seem to be in trouble with the victims in all the communities where disaster takes place, the first person they run to is the MP? Is there any reason why the MPs don't seem to have been involved in the administration of these what's the word again? Interventions. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Simushi.
Thank you, PS, for your presentation. I've picked the statement where you are saying your institution suffers from lack of resources. And when you look at the role that you play, and especially that the disasters normally are not planned for. They occur when you least expect. So I wanted to find out what sort of a budget would your institution require for it to be able to address at least the challenges that we face as a country in terms of what your institution plays. Because when I look at the figures, I'm a bit uncomfortable. I know last year there was some realignment, but I think that was because we were trying to respond to a problem. But in trying to prepare for a problem, for the problems that we hit us, what sort of a budget would you think would maybe suffice for as a standby budget? Then the last one is, you are talking about fires is one of the challenges that you have. In my constituents, we had a serious disaster where almost an entire village was burned down. That was, I think, in 2022. And there was support of tents that was given, and then there was a promise of iron sheets so that, let's say, those households could rebuild their houses. But I've been making a follow-up on this issue for quite a number of times. But up to now, I haven't received any meaningful support to make sure that at least they can get some iron sheets to rebuild the houses. They are still living in those small tents up to now, almost 3 years down the road. So what could be the problem? How can I be assisted? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Honorable Mabumba.
Chair. PS, for me, I take you to page 2 of your presentation on the budget performance.
Page
2.
Page 2, okay.
Yeah. Table 1, where there you have indicated on disaster and humanitarian operations management, you have indicated a budget of 277 plus million, and then a release of 187, then an expenditure of 100.5 million, if that's correct. Then my question would be, the other 87 million, my assumption has not yet been spent, isn't it? If I look at these tabulations. So what could be the reason why the 87 million has not been spent if it has been released? The second one is obvious, you allude to the fact that obvious your budget is limited. So to what extent are you coordinating with your colleagues in the Ministry of Local Government under the component of the 5% disaster management under the CDF, in the context of the issues where you're talking about furniture, phones, and computers for your officers that have been stationed in the districts? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. National Coordinator, can you respond?
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much, members of the committee. I think I'll start with the last one because it's very, very interesting, Honorable Mabumba. When we met the DCs 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, all of them, we reminded our DC's chair that there's a 5% component in the CDF, which is supposed to be used to respond immediately. And this is in each constituency in about 900,000 kwacha. This money is meant to respond immediately. But what has been happening, Chair, is that every time there's an emergency, the districts, the provinces are coming back to DMMU when they're supposed to utilize that 5%. Every time there's an issue, it's DMMU the following thing. Even yesterday, accident in the north, the first phone call was, what are you going to do to help us? And I said, you've got a 9%, 5% CDF. Things like send us fuel. So there is that provision, honorable members, and that 5%, local government has to utilize it for disaster emergency and quick response. And we have had a good discussion, I think, 2 weeks ago with the local government. We wanted to remind them that the district disaster committees, the provincial disaster committees have that 5% in each constituency, almost 900,000 kwacha for response. And I think that's my response, Honorable Chair and members. We have to have a very open discussion with the local government and through the MPs, through the DCs, and through the chairpersons of the CDF. That 5% has to be utilized. That 5% has to be utilized, and we have to agree how it's utilized. It's for emergency response. Before the DMMU comes in, the district or the constituency where the problem is must find a solution to them. If it's beyond their means, then they can come to the disaster management and mitigation unit. I think that's my response, Chair. And we've had discussions with the local government. We've written to local government. We've mentioned this to all the DCs. We had a meeting for 2 days with the DCs online. And we mentioned that that money has to be utilized. The issue we got was that the councils are holding on to that 5%. And that's the response we got. That is very hard. I think this was what we told. Very hard to access that 5%. It shouldn't be hard. And I think we'll continue with the discussions, Chair, with the local government to simplify the rules that money should be utilized for emergency responses, and if possible for prevention of any other disasters. Unless my colleagues have anything, because this is not for me. Director, anything to add? Anything from the assistant directors? Go ahead. No, you have nothing. Thank you so much. On the second question, Chair, when it comes to the 87 million difference, do you want to handle that, Mr. Piri, the accountant? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm not.
Thank you very much.
I'm not giving you permission.
Oh, I thought you were giving me chance because that money for disaster is never there.
Order. I'm not giving you permission to speak now. Let them talk. Okay. We can continue, sir.
Thank you, Chair, through the NC. The observed amount of 87 million, which is still not yet spent, this amount is for the ARC, the payout, as the NC has talked about it. This is the Africa Risk Capacity payout. So the delay was caused by the Treasury having not released the money on time. But as of yesterday, they indicated that they will release the money so that we pay the whole amount. The chunk is about 4 months, which we are remaining with. Okay. The first payment was for January, February. So we were supposed to be paying in 2 months. Now, because of the delay by the Treasury, we're almost near June. So what we have remained with is for paying for 4 months, of which this 87 will also be exhausted, but I should say by tomorrow, because by today, if they fund, we'll do the transfer to Minister of Community. I submit, Chair.
Okay. Here it reads that releases 187, meaning this money was released.
So yes, although it was released. You can I continue?
Yeah, so I'm wondering why it reads as released when in actual fact what you received in actuality is 100.
What we spent was 100 million, which we sent to Minister of Community. Of course, it's about 80 something. That includes RDCs. But in terms of what we still have, we haven't sent it to communities, about 87, whereby we're waiting for some more funds from the Treasury, so that we send the whole chunk of it to the community to finish up the program. I submit.
Okay. Am I allowed to continue with this first question?
No, continue.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair and members. There is a question from Honorable Mulova from the constituency with Milk and Honey, sir. The Act, Chair, is very, very clear, and I think my team can help me, that the satellite committees, how they are constituted, the district disaster management committees, how they are constituted, the provincial committees, how they are constituted, is very, very clear. And I think it's very, very important for MPs to be able to look at your Act. That's your Act. Where do the MPs fit in? Because what we are experiencing at the moment, Chair, is that we are getting MPs writing straight to the disaster management unit without going through their committees.
Sorry, sir. A point of order is being raised. Honorable Simushi, what is your point of order?
Thank you, Chair. I'm getting confused. When you look at the 277 million...
You're back to the question of the 277.
Yes, please.
Yes.
And the 187 which was released, and then some money which is spent. I wanted to find out whether we are looking at money which was budgeted for by the Treasury for this year's budget, or we are looking at even other money which came from somewhere else, like the African Risk.
Okay.
Because as far as I'm concerned, we are looking at what was budgeted for, and that's what we are looking for, and see if money was released and money was spent.
If you check, you are done?
Yes, please.
Okay, so if you check under their explanation, they put it very clear that part of the money, which is that what came from the Africa Risk capacity, isn't it? As part of the explanation. So they are in order to indicate that this is part of some of the donor funding. You received some donor funding in the program, and we have had this case even in some of the ministers. I'm making a ruling, sir. You raised the point of order, so I have to make a ruling. So even for other ministries, we have seen where maybe some donor funding comes in the and they report it. So they are in order to do that.
Chair, I think it should be differentiated in the budget.
Unless if you wanted to have a separate line. Yeah. But in terms of what they have put, that is correct, sir. You can continue, National Coordinator.
So much, Chair. So our appeal to the MPs, Honourable Chair, is that they have to go through the structures which are set in the Act. This is their satellite committees, their district disaster committees, and their provincial committees. What I've been experiencing, I think the team has been experiencing, is that MPs write straight to DMMU and say there's a disaster here in my constituency. I won't give examples because I think I'll be wrong to do that. And the provincial chairperson doesn't know, the district committee, they don't know, the satellite don't know. And what I've done in the last few months is to refer the Honourable MP back to their committee and say, let the recommendation come from your committee. The role of the MPs, I think I'll leave that to, can I give it to?
Before you give it,
thank you.
The DC is the chairperson of that
the disaster district
at a district level,
and the PS at the province.
And the PS at the province. I think Honourable Murewa's question was, how do you monitor, isn't it, the work of the DCs? Not necessarily as to why MPs write directly to office, but who monitors? Because he went on to say maybe you may find a situation.
Relatives.
Yes, so that's the question we want to hear from you.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. That's a very interesting question, Honourable. I didn't want to avoid answering it. Yes, there are cases where some DCs are not following the rules, and our duty is to make sure that they are responsible for the distribution of foods. We normally give it to what we call the PIPs, and they are monitored. And they're supposed to give us a record of who has actually received this food. And it should not be done by one person. It should be done by a committee. And the job of that committee is to monitor. And we receive the acquisition, what do we call them again? Acquittal forms. Yes, we have had situations, Chair, where one signature appears in the acquittal forms, and we'll query that. And we'll continue to query that. But we are trying to educate our DCs that we will not allow one person to make a decision. It has to be a decision by the committee. And on the acquittal sheets, they will not be submitted to us with one signature. We will refuse and we'll investigate. Some of the cases are being investigated. Logistics, do you want to contribute? Chair, through the chair, if I'm allowed.
Yeah, sure.
Is that clear? Thank you, Chair. So we will not allow one person, DC, to take the decision and distribute. And if there is any situation like that, we'll investigate them. And some cases are reported to the police. We will report them to the police. Thank you, Chair. Okay. The next question, Chair, if I'm allowed, is what type of a budget are you looking for? And the issue of the tents, which people have been living in tents for the last 3 years, I will hand over to my accountant and probably planner, chief planner, where are you? What will be a realistic budget for DMMU? Also knowing that at times we don't plan. Last year, the other year we didn't plan for a budget, for a drought, it happened. So we had to quickly move in. But how much would we require for preparedness?
Thank you, Chair. If you look may I take you to the tables in terms of budget performance for 2025 and 2024? Page 2, yes, we look at how we are faring in terms of allocations, much fair from 2024 to 2025. In 2024, we had a annual budget of 125 million. Then for this year, it's coming to about 323. But although it looks big on paper, much of it is because of the payout, which was factored in the budget for this year. Realistically, for DMMU, something, I would say something reliable, something whereby to start with maybe a budget of maybe 500 million will suffice. So that all these were able to absorb these calamities under unforeseen circumstances for a start. Although it's very difficult to adequately budget for those things. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. So about 500 million. Okay.
Chair, if I can also continue, if I'm allowed, is that the budget can be there. I think it's important that the money is released on time, timely, so that we can then execute some of the plans which we have. And some of them, like the drought, like locusts, we can't plan for them. It's very, very difficult. But we need a contingency to be able to tackle, because things like locusts are known. We can't plan for the curfew pollution, because it happened. But we need a budget which will make us respond quickly. But we also need a budget, Chair, which will make us prepare for any emergency. I think preparedness is one issue which we have to think of at all levels, at satellite level, district level, provincial level, constituency level, that we should be prepared. Because some of these issues, Chair, you can't budget them for them. Report we have, for instance, on the bridges, washed out bridges, 134 bridges washed out. We didn't plan for that. And we have to respond and make sure that these bridges are put back, like the Eastern Province bridge, quickly had to work with the Ministry of Defense, RDA and DMMU to get that bridge done. Otherwise, the whole of Eastern Province and Malawi and Mozambique was going to be cut off. So it's difficult to budget for situations like that, but it's important to have enough funds for preparedness, for risk management, Chair. I submit.
Thank you. Any questions, honourable members? Honourable, your tent. Okay, maybe before word first, Honourable Simush, what is your comment?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to say something to what the PS has mentioned in relation to MPs writing letters to DMMU. And it being seen like it's not supposed to be the case. It's supposed to start from the lower structures and coming up. Now, PS, one of the roles of the members of parliament is oversight on the government. So this oversight role, I think, is at every level. And now, taking into consideration also the fact that civil service, there's a lot of red tape. MPs have to be proactive and ensure efficiency, because all these problems that we are talking about here, in terms of disasters and what have you, when they happen, the person that is heavily affected is a member of parliament, because all of them, all our people look up to the member of parliament. But now when you look at the way civil servants, in most cases, respond to issues, they take their time. So the reason why you find the members of parliament writing direct to you or coming to your offices is to trigger that quick response. We are aware of the satellite committees, the district level, and the DCs and so on. We are aware. But at the same time, we are alive to the fact that in terms of their response mechanisms, some of them don't take these issues really serious. It's business as usual. So when you see us writing, I think don't take offense that maybe we are trying to push you. Maybe we are not aware. We are aware, but just to try and make sure that the process at least is quickened. When you receive it, then you can also quickly find out, and then maybe the process now starts to normalize the issues.
Thank you. Can you respond to the issue of the tents, and then we'll allow Honorable Mulebwa to ask a question.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair and the members. I think let me assure the committee that for the team, we will respond as quickly as we can. And we are preparing our district disaster management officers and our DCs to respond quickly. That one, we are putting systems in place to make sure that they do. And we will continue receiving letters from our MPs. And actually, as we used the word trigger, they will trigger us to act very, very quickly by going back and formalizing everything, sir. That one we assure you, sir. We want to apologize, sir, for the tents, for people living in tents for 3 years. I think it should not be the case. And we have a guideline also when it comes to when we should respond. But for this one, where people live in tents for 3 years without providing the tents, with iron sheets, I think it's not acceptable. We'll follow it up, sir, with our... which district is this, sir? That's Sikongo, yes, Sikongo. Malongo? Malondo. Our directors that operations will follow it, sir. We'll follow it up for that one. We apologize. It shouldn't take 3 years to get our people given iron sheets. Thank you. That's what I can say, Chair. I hope I've responded to all the questions, Chair.
Sure.
I submit.
Honorable Mulebwa.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. National Coordinator, I think that your unit is something that, in my view, what Alam said, Mr. Piri, that 500 million, to me, I would actually not even find a figure to put to what belongs to your office. Are you considering, for example, to have an open-ended budget, meaning we have to have a legislation that would help us in that sense? Because like you said, you can never plan for disaster, and we can have that 300 million, but it doesn't mean anything as far as disasters are concerned. So I was thinking, wouldn't it be prudent to fight for an open-ended budget? It doesn't matter if funds are left, for example, from this year's budget, they can always spill over to what would have been allocated. But looking at the kind of disasters we have sometimes, I know you spend sleepless nights trying to see how you manage this. Wouldn't it be prudent to fight for a legislation that would allow your office to have an open-ended budget? I know it's difficult, but wouldn't it be prudent to have something like that?
Okay, maybe this, before the national coordinator responds to that one, you want to put these members here, and it goes at the end of the day, we are the ones who do the budget. Just I want a lighter note. So unless we said we push for legislation, but in that case, because but I get him. You know, from what you are tabulating, basically you find these emergencies come unexpectedly. So I think the concern, in fact, we will have as a committee is at the time of preparation of the budget, before it comes to for approval to Parliament, is what kind of engagement do you do to ensure that you get that lion's share. Like 2025, you have what? We have 200 and is it 217? That's what we are sitting at, isn't it? The whole budget, 217. And then you only have about this 323 million is for the whole year, isn't it? The 323 is for the whole year, isn't it? It's for the whole year. And this has gone up because if we look at the arising from the point of order which was raised by Honorable Simushi. So if we are to remove that ARC funding, then completely it's nothing. And the DMMU is a very big institution. And my calculation indicates that in the first quarter, you are given 60% of the whole budget. So we are remaining with 40% only to carry on for the which is real nothing. But you comment maybe on his question. But also what I wanted to find out from your end is, in terms of, you know, these disaster-prone areas, in terms of mapping, how do you do your mapping? What I mean is, we hear maybe day in, day out a place like maybe Gwembe, for example, because that's my neighbor. Almost every year you find that you expect a disaster there, isn't it? Somehow, because of the nature. Or just say these places are along the valley. You have mentioned it, Wano and the others. But in terms of your mapping, in terms of the mapping of the areas, I don't know how you do it. I've been now a member of parliament for my constituency, Mwomba, which is a neighbor to Gwembe this is my 9th year. But whenever there's a situation in the valley, your entry point is Gwembe. Okay? But part of my constituency, even one of the wards completely is in the valley. But when there's an intervention, always whatever is given is in. I'm not complaining about it, because you have to do it. It's in the people in Gwembe. It's like, I don't know whether I've zoned them according to the consequences, or because we're engaging the DC for that area, who will not say, look, also in my neighbor here, my members are suffering. And this has been year in, year out, whether you are drilling bores to intervene and the like. And this is the pressure these members of parliament are facing. Because I go there, then I'm seeing as if I'm in effect, because whatever help comes, they think his member of parliament who has brought it. So there's one about what is happening. Our colleagues across there, they were just being given some packs. And here we are doing, there's nothing. So I wanted to find out, how do you map these areas to ensure that even as you are doing these interventions, no one complains in the neighbors in Ruano, neighbors in these other areas which I have mentioned. I just wanted to find out whether you've taken time to look at the proper mapping of this area so that everyone is assisted.
Chair, I think that's a very important question. And I think when I went to DMMU, the first question with my military background was to find out which areas, in Nabwadia, Luano.
Yes.
These, I don't know how much we spent at Ministry of Defense to try and drop food in Luano and Nabwadia, because they can't be reached. And the first question I asked when I got to DMMU was, colleagues, can we identify these areas? But it's not only places like in the north. To get to one constituency, remember that constituency which needs ports, Lunga. It takes 14 hours to get the food into the air on a boat. So I just wanted to respond by asking our assistant director to actually pinpoint what we've done to identify and map these areas, and also to make sure that they're accessible by road. If they can't be accessed by road, then that's when the airlifting comes in. Then there are also the districts in the Western Province where the roads, you cannot send a 4x4 it has to be a military vehicle to reach Sikongo or some of these areas. So, Bodikezo, do you want to respond on that? Chair, if you can allow the Assistant Director.
Through the Chair, thank you very much, NC, for that question. For Momba constituency, maybe just as a start-off point, just to mention that from the personal level, I grew up in Mlobezi, so I'm very much aware of Momba constituency. But just to mention that I think we have the risk profiles for all the districts. And I think what then needs to be done is to see how we can increase awareness of the locals and how to be able to generate reports in events like that. Borrowing on what the NC alluded to in the process that needs to be followed, it becomes very challenging when we don't have a report to respond to, because it starts from the response. But we take note of that, and I think what then we can do to enhance that is we are aware of the vulnerable areas in the Momba constituency, which is part of partly Kalomo, partly...
In fact, I knew that you are a bit lost. I know honorable members. There's Momba in Kazungula. This is Momba in the Monze.
The Monze one, yeah.
The chief Momba, so I could tell that, yeah. It's part of its neighboring Gwembe.
The neighboring Gwembe. I think the vulnerability is the same.
It's the same.
It's the same, starting from Sinazongwe, Gwembe, and part of Siavonga, Chirundu. The terrain is the same. And I think what we then need to do is to see how we can work with the district officers so that we pick those wards that are vulnerable, even as we work to respond to emergencies that happen in those areas. We also see how do we then build the resilience, because the issue really is around resilience and the vulnerability in those areas. We are aware that crop production in that area, especially for grains like maize, is a challenge. How do we use the environment that seems to be okay in that area to build resilience over time? We are, one of the things that we know is that the area there, the risks that has been identified in our mapping of those areas, is that it's prone to high temperatures, less rainfall during the rain and short rainfall period. So how do we build resilience in those areas? So just through the NC, to assure the chair and the honorable member for that constituency is that the risk profile has been done, but maybe what we can enhance from our end is how do we engage the community to build them so that we can start seeing reports also coming from that area for response. NC, through you, I submit.
Thank you.
Chair, can I also assure the nation through the chair that when it comes to these areas, like the ones which are prone to situations like Gwembe, Luano, we have enough stocks to distribute. Enough maize, we have enough beans, we have enough rice to be able to respond. In fact, we are planning right away to pre-position some of these foodstuffs in these areas, and that's our plan. In terms of stocks, we've got enough.
Okay.
If enough to respond to any of the districts which will require our assistance this year. I mean, I would give an example of Chama. They did their best, they planted, but they had a drought. So Chama will have to respond. There are certain areas where animal conflict is a problem. We will respond. We have got enough stocks, Chair. I submit.
Thank you. Honourable members, we have to end here. National Coordinator and your team, thank you very much for coming to appear before this committee. Your concerns have been taken. We'll be meeting, I think in the first week, the Minister of Finance and National Planning. That's our role, just to see what can be done over these matters. So, Kapukov of the laws of Zambia, in terms of the immunity, that which was given to you, Eja, one, you also end here.
Do have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the team, I just wanted to say thank you to the Chair, the committee, for giving us the chance to be able to respond to your questions, and just an assurance that we'll do our best to serve our people. We thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. That's the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit appearing before the Committee on the Budget and Planning Committee. The committee is considering the budget performance of the 2024 financial year and the first quarter of 2025. And just to mention that the Planning and Budgeting Committee is led by the chairperson, that's Honorable Fred Jatila. And so the committee is yet to, receive the last witness for today, and that's Eastern Province. And so we're standing by for Eastern Province to make an appearance before the Planning and Budgeting Committee. Good morning.